Football Report powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. And it is brought to you today by our friends at the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Some Eagles news. The trade deadline has come and gone. A.J. Brown's still here. Surprise! Adam Schefter tweeted that out a couple of moments ago. He did not get traded, and the trade deadline has passed. But some news with the Eagles. Nolan Smith, the practice window on him is open, so he will be back at practice. I guess they will practice on Thursday this week since they have a Monday night football game. But the Eagles tweeted out just 2 minutes ago that opened the practice window for Nolan Smith and released Patrick Johnson from the active roster and Terrence Marshall from the practice squad. So no Patrick Johnson. We knew there would be an odd man out. Looks like Patrick Johnson is that guy. As we bring in Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, right as the trade deadline strikes midnight, 4:02. Where are you today, Adam Caplan? Well, the Eagles, no more trades. Yeah. They did 3 moves last week. We'll get into them now. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. Yeah, it's just so funny, Mike, that, and it's typical of the way it happens in professional sports. We see this at the NBA. Like, you've got what I would call middling trade deadline moves until today. It went wild around the NFL. A lot of blockbuster trades, Mike. The Cowboys, and what I'm going to explain is, Mike, what happens is teams don't like to show their hand in terms of making a great offer, their best offer, until they have to. And that's why you see a lot of deals go down the last day, Mike. And part of it is, Mike, sometimes they have to realize, like, the Cowboys totally missed a Mozzie Smith, the first rounder from 2 years ago, and they threw the towel in. They actually almost cut him, I'm told, before the season started. But they threw him in the Quinnen Williams trade, and that's what happened. It was definitely a wild day in the NFL, no question about it.
It was, and the Eagles got out ahead of it. So let's get into a couple of things here, Adam Caplan. The big move they made was yesterday morning, obviously. They get Jalen Phillips. This is a guy who played with Vic Fangio, has had some injury issues. Yeah. Does he kind of put this defense on another level? Is this exactly what they needed?
They did. Look, we knew Nolan Smith was going to come back in November. We just didn't know it could potentially be this week. Well, got to get through it. He's 21-day window, by the way, includes the weekend, I'm told. So you got to see. And they're going to have, that he was in yesterday's meeting. They'll see what happens on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday's practice and the Sunday walkthrough. By the way, for a Monday night game, they have until 4 p.m. Eastern, the day of the game. It's a quirky rule. So he actually, if he looks great and he feels great, he could potentially play. Jalen Phillips, here's the deal with Jalen Phillips. Once he got over the issue that had happened in college, the concussion issue, he took a year off of football, wasn't sure if he was going to play again. Decided to come back. He finished his career up well. He did very well initially. As a matter of fact, Mike, people forget about this. He never missed a game his first year with the Dolphins. 23 and 24, back-to-back, and a torn Achilles tendon. But he's healthy. He's got great size, great length. And now a third-round pick, a second-day pick is a lot to give up for a guy on an expiring contract. But my understanding is if he plays well, stays relatively healthy, definitely in the cards to try to bring him back. But he's got to play well. And obviously Nolan Smith's future and Jalen Hunt plays into this. But I like the trade. I thought it was a smart move by Howie. There were other teams involved, as you understand it, but they're able to get him. This is certainly the best move of all of them, at least on paper.
So how does this kind of affect everybody else here? Like, does Jalen Hunt see his snaps kind of go down? I mean, Nolan Smith, his practice window is back. But when everybody's healthy, how do you kind of see it all kind of playing out now? Patrick Johnson, by the way, he got released today.
Yes, he got. Yeah, he. By the way, he is subject to waivers. So what happens is now every player, even vested veterans, if they're released, they're now subject to waivers. So if Patrick Johnson does not get claimed, look for him to go to the practice squad. It basically, Mike, is they'll have a 4-man rotation. So typically, teams dress 4, not 5 edge rushers, but you have to you try to have 5 on your 53-man roster. So yeah, it's interesting, Mike, and don't forget about Josh Uche, who's done a nice job coming off the bench. Uche's going to be the odd man out. He'll be the 4. So they have to work this top 3, Mike. Now that Phillips is in there, once they get Smith back and see how his conditioning is, Don't forget about BG, Mike. He's now on the roster. Now, here's the thing. We don't know exactly if BG's got to get in football shape. Physical shape is not the same as physical shape is not football shape. Conditioning, they got to see what that looks like. They did see him before the bye. So it's you don't usually play 4 guys. So to me, it's a 3-man rotation. Then the 4th guy, BG, if that's the way it goes, again, you got to look at how everybody looks in practice. Phillips has got to start, Mike, to answer your question. He's got to start. That's just the way it is. You give a 3rd-round pick, he could potentially be their best guy, but Vic's got to see him again. Yes, he coached him 2 years ago, but Vic hasn't seen him since he's come off both injuries combined. So you got to see this, how it looks. But BG to me would be sort of that 4th guy to answer your question and play sporadically. But we got to see how they look in practice first.
So they might divvy up snaps. We'll see. So Jalen Phillips is here. Good fit. You like that move. Yep. Jair Alexander on Saturday. Anything left in the tank?
Well, here's the thing. He's only 28, Mike. You know, he had what I was told by one source is inconsistent tape production last year. Like sometimes he looked like the old Alexander. Sometimes he looked like he was nursing that bad knee. But he showed that he clearly had something left. That's why there were multiple teams involved in trying to sign him. It wasn't just Baltimore. But his tape was not good this year. Think about this, Mike. This is how bad it got for him at Alexander in Baltimore. They were down 3 corners for 1 game. They wouldn't play him.
Jeez.
What does that tell you? Okay? What does that tell you? I just gave you the answers to the text.
Yeah.
Like, they're telling you they didn't want to play him. So the Eagles gave up next to nothing for him. They're taking a flyer. That's where that is.
Yeah, that's not encouraging there at all. I was going to ask so do you look at Kelee Ringo still being the best option there?
Kelee Ringo is involved. Jair Alexander is involved. When Jacorian Bennett gets added to the active roster, he'll be involved. It's I don't want to call it a tryout, though it kind of is through practice, Mike.
Yeah.
That's the only way they can evaluate them. There's no other way to do it. You don't ever want to go with the committee at corner. That's pathetic. I mean, now I get it. Joey Jackson is still on the roster. He may not be. They're going to have to do something. Once Jack Bennett is ready to go, you can't use all of them. So they got to figure that that's a practice decision with Vic Fangio, Christian Parker, and obviously Howie Roseman. But it's Howie's call. He's personnel control. So that one is to be determined. To me, it's wide open, Mike. But there's a reason why they brought in Bennett, why they made a trade for Jair Alexander. They do not want Kelee Ringo
Michael
starting.
Carter, by the way, who's also here.
Well, Michael Carter's not a corner. He is a nickel and a safety, as we told you last week, Mike. I'm told they are definitely looking at Carter, who was a safety at Duke, as a backup safety. Now, you don't need it now. DeJean, if they need him at corner, that would be because Bennett fails. We know about Ringo, and Alexander fails, and then they got to move DeJean to corner. They'd rather not do that, Mike, to answer your question.
Right, and obviously that would be shifting a lot of parts around and moving DeJean to the outside, putting a new guy in here. So we'll see how this all maps out Monday night. Will Ringo be the first guy out in the field, or will they surprise and have, get Alexander, bounce back to the guy he was with Christian Parker in Green Bay? So that's that. You mentioned the Dallas move. They trade a second-round pick and a first-round pick to get Quinnen Williams, who's 27 years old. So 3-5-1, good player. But should they be trading first-round picks to get players now, or should they be trying to build this team? They're in a weird spot.
Well, here's the thing. Quinnen Williams is still young. He became a leader after a very rough start and some immaturity with the Jets. He became a leader. And he's a really good football player. He does everything well. Now, it's twofold. Kenny Clark, who they traded for in the Michael Parsons trade, is an older player, right? Their run defense has been horrendous. Even with Kenny Clark, it's been bad. The Cardinals are not good at running back. So, although Steve McCarter did well last night, the Cardinals were down two running backs who were injured reserve. So, they had to do something. They missed Bailey, as I said at the start of the talk today, Monty Smith, who was a first rounder 2 years ago out of Michigan. Mm-hmm. And this is how you cover up mistakes. You overpay. And they had to do it. And Jerry Jones, look, he got the draft capital and the Michael Parsons trade, and they felt they could do this. look, this helps us for the future. Yeah, Quinn Williams is a really good football player, but they've got major problems in their secondary corner. They're not good at corner. They know this. They're a bad football team. The Eagles are going to have a cakewalk unless they suffer major injuries to win the division. But this is a trade more for the future, to be honest with you.
All right, and then the Jets, I mean, they've got now 5 first-round picks between 26 and 27. But the interesting part for me here is, you try in the draft to get a top-flight corner, a very good interior defensive tackle. And that's what you did, and then you trade him so you could do what? Try to get another corner, and you're not going to get 2 guys better than those 2. It's just a weird situation, but they need to get a quarterback.
Well, they totally missed. Darren Mucci, the GM, totally missed on Justin Fields, who, by the way, the $30 million guaranteed, $20 million this year, $10 million next year. Good luck. So they don't have a quarterback for the future. They're very bad at receiver, other than Garrett Williams. Garrett Wilson is really good. And then, look, Mucci didn't draft Quinn Williams. He didn't draft Sauce Gardner. Now, that was a huge, huge payment by Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, who is fighting to keep his job. Jim Irsay, the guy who hired him, passed away, and his daughters are running the football team. It's not a given he'll be back next year. The Colts have come out of nowhere, Mike, to be one of the best teams in the National Football League. They're the best now in the AFC by record. So they were really bad at corner. They, too, missed on Juju Brents, a second-round corner who was a starter. Then he got hurt, and they cut him earlier this year. They cut him after 2 seasons. Mike, when you miss in first and second-round picks, this is when you start covering up problems and mistakes.
Well, Adam, obviously they're getting ready for Monday Night Football against the Packers, who had a bad loss, by the way, against the Carolina Panthers the other day. You can listen to that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll talk more about that matchup, but the trade deadline, Eagles get Jalen Phillips, Jair Alexander, Michael Carter, and, of course, we'll see how they all come into play. The big news today, though, Nolan Smith is activated his window is open for the practice window is now open, so he might be back. And we'll see how that all unfolds. Howie Roseman is coming up momentarily here. We'll have that for you on the Sports Bash. This has been Football at 4. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.